So how are you? Long day, you
Well,
said. Early morning, and then now late night. I'm forcing you to do a Zoom talk with me. Yeah.
oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I don't get to share tea very often, so it's a delight.
You often drink it alone when you have your tea.
Uh, yeah, not always. I share with my wife. I share with my brother. In fact, when I bought the tea sampler, he and I split it. So he took
Yeah.
some and I took some.
And how did you talk about the different tastes? Or did he have like some preferences, and then you were like, okay, I want to have these teas, and he said I want to have these teas.
Yeah, and then there were some left over that we were happy to share. But he and I both have small children. It's a little bit difficult, especially at the age of COVID, to get together and taste together very often. But virtually we do sometimes, or at family events, sometimes we will. But usually it's just me. I explore them on my own a little bit.
Okay.
I'm the one, more than most people that I know, who really likes to explore and taste. And it's the same as when I was in the wine business. Obviously, my professional colleagues were all very much the same. We would taste together and compare notes. And I believe the phrase is either wine geek or cork dork. We were like that. But at home, I am the one, and everybody else appreciates it. But if I talk too much about it, then,
Okay. Very good, very good. Yeah, you said that. I think it would be super interesting, especially also for me, to go a little bit into the wine or the wine world with you. As you started more or less a little bit your, can we say, a little bit Epicurean kind of way of life, a little bit discovering like the nice food through wine, or is it you've always have the tendency to kind of go a little bit for the kind of the more complex tastes, and then somehow wine just became one of your hobbies, so it just was there, and then you dove into the wine world? How did it come to that you got into wine?
Well, I guess I don't really know. My whole life I always enjoyed beverages very much, and I don't play favorites: teas, coffees, wines, spirits, Scotch, crop, etc. To me, they all have their own potential as long as you do it right. So if you do wine correctly, but you do tea incorrectly, then you're gonna like wine better, and vice versa. But any one of them, if you do it correctly, there's no reason to say that one is better than the other. And in my life, I couldn't even say that one of them came first. When I was in college, I was the only person who, while everybody else was playing beer pong, and don't get me wrong, I did too, but I was hosting wine and cheese parties. And when everybody would, during exam season, consume copious amounts of coffee, I did too, but I would have a tea chest, and I would share it with everybody, all the different teas. And I didn't know why, but I always knew that I just enjoyed these things. And I would not only enjoy having them and sharing them, but also exploring them. And sort of just, as I'm consuming sometimes in excess. In college that happens. But I would always sort of say, here's what I really like about this. And nobody would listen, but I would enjoy it. And, in college, for example, is where I discovered Gyokuro, which is to this day my favorite style of tea. Very, very much. And I don't know, I've just carried it through. When I was in my mid-20s, I went in to get my master's in business. And when I came out, the job that I got was at a wine company. And that's where I learned to take it to a bit of a professional level. I'm not a certified sommelier of any kind, nor do I pretend to be. But I do, I can carry on a conversation with them professionally. Let's put it that way. So I guess that's really the story there. And I'm a little bit better versed in the vocabulary of wine only because that was my profession. But to me, if you take the principles of how to immerse yourself in that and apply it to tea, there's really no discrepancy.
Mm. Was it finally okay? You kind of this is the nice things, I guess, about life, that sometimes you just land somewhere and then you kind of become an expert, or you get curious about it. Was it only for you the taste, or kind of the taste experiences and the differences in taste experiences with wine that kept you there, or was it kind of the whole, from vineyard to, for farmer vineyards, to how it is done, the different kind of wines that interested you? Or was it that kind of kept you in the wine world for some time?
Well, when I began, I didn't know all that there was for me to learn. I knew that there was some stuff, but I didn't know what it was. So I had already developed my palate, which is to say that I knew how to distinguish among different tastes and sort of very much explore. But that's on the consumption side. On the sharing side, you know, you really have to do a better job of having the whole picture, having the experience. And short of going to visit the vineyards, which are, you know, scattered around the world, you do that with stories. And that seems a little bit silly, because if somebody talks about, you know, well, I bought this land and I had some guy make a wine label for me, and isn't this a great bottle, and I chose this bottle because it looks great, and, you know, those kinds of stories don't work very well. And those are the kinds of stories most people hear. So when I say the story is what really allows it to become a whole picture, most people roll their eyes. But every now and then you come across a story that is, it's not even about humility, although it helps, but it's about, it's not self-conscious. It's just when somebody has a story to say, and they're talking about their family, or they're talking about their adventure. There was one woman that we worked with who was from New York, and she had been traveled the world. She had a million jobs. She was a butcher for a while. Ivia was her name, and she was really such a wonderful person. She had gone to California with her husband, and they just decided to, you know, stop everything and buy a house that was on a bunch of land that was good for vineyards, and they bought it. And then she's telling the story, and you know, there's, on the one hand, she would have plenty of bragging rights based on the story, but she was just telling it. It wasn't about the subconscious side of it. And the same exact story told from an authentic perspective made everything a lot better. And then as you taste the wine, you know, she's referring to the land that she had bought, and it's facing on this certain slope. And I learned that the vines were planted by these people in these years. And, you know, I chose to blend this much Merlot with the cab based upon such and such criteria. And, you know, what you're tasting, what you're exploring in your mouth is suddenly part of something much bigger. And everybody in the room can gather and share in that together. And then everybody's going to get their own thing from it. But it's not, it's still going to bring us all together. And that was really, to me, the way that wine is best shared. And I think in tea is very much the same. You know, Neo, I see on your website and your Instagram, etc. You know, you refer to the tasting notes very often, and you talk about what you should, you know, here is how I recommend you brew the tea, etc. But then there's also, you know, it's Mr. Sakamoto or Mr. Henta, as we're probably going to share tonight. And, you know, I remember, you know, there was one video I was watching in the last week. I'm sorry, I forget which one. But the gentleman in there who whose tea it was, you had, you know, instead of the organic side of this, and the tea has been in his family for so many generations, and he chose this method with these leaves based upon these criteria, and then you're showing pictures of him doing it. And all of a sudden, I'm tasting the tea, if I pour it and brew it and, you know, drink it, all that, the liquid's quite the same. But what my understanding of what I'm exploring is very different. And suddenly I'm just immersed on different parts of my brain are more engaged, not just my taste buds. Big deal. Yeah,
it's that's, I think, I also have actually a friend, he works as well in the wine industry, and I think it's especially when you're in wine or when you're in tea, I think the two industries are quite similar in a certain way, that you have actually the farmer you have some farmers, they do their own wine, as it is with tea. Some farmers, they really do everything from A to Z. And then sometimes you have the just producers of the leaves or producers of the grapes, and then you have the producer of the wine. So, and it's for me, it's what I really like is all these smaller family farmers, which are in the south of Japan. When you go there, like with Mr. Henta or with Mr. Sakamoto, both of them, they do everything on their own with their family and within their land. So everything, then you see they are really the experts. They know exactly how to grow it, what to look after, and what to do in the production process to get an amazing tea. And I think it's this story also that I personally like a lot, that they also a little bit, when not only they tell you how they do the tea, but there's so much in the background for them, especially with, we are focusing more on organic tea, and you get in the story, and often it's a little bit a story where they said, okay, I really wanted to go natural. There are some of them maybe have family members who got sick, maybe themselves they got sick, and they said, okay, I don't want this anymore. And you really see, like, especially with the organic farmers, somehow when they started also early, is that it was a little bit of a fight for them, because it was not absolutely not common and not asked by the Japanese market to go organic. There was absolutely no need to do that. And then you see that they are very, very, very determined also in how they tell the story and how they did this kind of movement to organic, and makes them in a way proud. But it's not kind of an arrogant pride, but it's kind of a humble pride mixed with humility, because they still know they do something which is maybe not absolutely common for the market in Japan, but they just know it's the right thing to do, and then they try to improve from there. And this was super fascinating for me as well, especially when I was there.
Yes, very much. I've always admired that. I've found that in general, if you I found it in wine first. In wine, organic is not as big as biodynamic, which is a different kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But with both of them, you can have the same kind of principle where if you're thinking about ways to do better with not only your product, but the land from which your product comes, and your estate, and your consumers, I mean, you're looking after their health, of course, and that of the environment around you, and all these things, then it is almost certainly true that you are also going to do a more thoughtful and a more careful job of producing everything else about your product. So the winemaker who tends his fields with organic or biodynamic principles in mind is almost certainly going to be very meticulous in the winemaking section after the grapes are harvested, and much more particular about tasting in barrel, and much more particular about what kind of wood is in the barrel. You can almost say that if they're a little less particular about one, it's never 100%, but odds are they're less particular about the other. And so the winemakers who do biodynamics, it's almost very clear to me. I mean, I live on Long Island in New York. We have a lot of wineries in vineyards here, a lot of local things. And many of them, one right next to another, where the terroir is effectively the same and the exposure is basically the same. The climate is 100% the same. And one of them practices biodynamism and the other doesn't. And you can tell immediately a world of difference among the grapes. And, you know,
how do you taste the difference of if it's biodynamic and non-bio? Are there kind of certain characteristics to it on taste side?
Yeah. How would I describe this? If it was biodynamic or even organic, but in wine at least, I've never had biodynamic tea, but in wine at least, I would say that it is a truer taste. It's more wholesome. Okay, we're live again.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Terroir, you had asked me how how I would describe the difference between otherwise identical wines, biodynamic and not. The answer is that it took me a while to find my words. So during the pause and recording, I didn't practice. The biodynamic wines are a little bit more authentic. You know, sometimes if you have, for example, I'm going to make a very bad analogy, but please bear with me. If you have a bag of potato chips and they're delicious and they're mass-produced and, you know, very commercial, and you have eaten them your whole life, and they're always very tasty, obviously. It's not that suddenly they taste poor. But if you buy a potato at the farmer's market and cook it and slice it yourself and drizzle a little olive oil, maybe some rosemary, and put it in the oven, okay? Can you say that you have a potato chip? Well, you can say that, but is it at a different level? Yes. And in that way, the biodynamic wines are, I think, just at a different level than the same wines made otherwise, grown otherwise, I should say.
Okay, yeah. So they're much more. Is there much more labor put into the biodynamic wines than, and much more kind of? They seem to be less industrial, really, if you might say so.
Yes, well, they have to be. Just the nature of what's required. Without getting into all the details, because I'm not a farmer or an agronomist by any stretch, but you know, you're required to do more by hand. You're required to use more of what you have on your own land that occurs naturally. So you have to retrieve materials and manipulate them and use them on your own instead of purchasing things that are ready-made. And in general, even though the principles don't say, you know, exert more calories to produce the same thing, they don't say that, but by default, it certainly happens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. If I go and think about how about the tea, so maybe we can now slowly start to dive into the tea we have with us. Otherwise, because I was so amazed to dive a little bit with you into the wine world that I nearly forgot about the tea. But if I think back, I think where wine and tea, where there's difference in the way of production, is that I know what you're saying about there's a little bit more kind of complexity maybe also in a biodynamic environment. It can be, there's certainly the case that you have some kind of a more standardized tea flavor, but I must say that in general, the tea which is done in Japan, like every farmer has a little bit his own specificity. What the main difference is when you go and you dive a little bit into more industrial and non-organic tea, and you go into organic tea, what they're actually, and what's pretty surprising is when you do non-organic, they can push somehow the nitrogen in the tea leaves, meaning that they can push the umami flavor, which is something that actually the tea drinker in Japan is looking for. This is a little bit this savory, sweet note. And what I realize is that somehow they're able to push this note even a little bit stronger with the non-organic tea plants. But for me, it's kind of a much more of a less balanced tea flavor profile. That you have a very, very strong note of this umami flavor, of this savory, sweet flavor. But on the other hand, the tea plant doesn't seem so nicely balanced. It doesn't seem to kind of show its whole taste spectrum. It's really focused to push the maximum this savory taste note, which is finally asked by the consumer. And that's, I think, also a big reason why there's such little, or while the amount of organic tea farmers is so little. When we are counted, it used to be 2%. Now we're maybe 3 to maximum 4%. So terroir which are organic are really small in comparison to the terroirs which are not, because what you are also able is that you just have one harvest more. So it's really an investment for, as you do organic tea, you just have to accept that in June, when the bugs are out, they're eating away your tea.
Oh yeah. That's right.
So this is just something they have to accept, and that's actually a little bit my experience. And for me, it was actually when I was standing on the tea fields on an organic versus a non-organic one, and where I really saw the differences. And this was just for me very surprising how different, kind of how much more life on an organic tea field was versus a non-organic. And this was a little bit more for me the revelation of, okay, I think for me at that time was then the decision done. I will go really with Neo on the organic journey and not stay on the other one.
And I like what you said about the bugs. Sometimes you just have to accept that. In biodynamism, it regularly happens that the farmers will lose half to, more or more of their harvest. Not every year, often, because you're not putting anything down that isn't there already. So something gets eaten or swept away, or it just doesn't grow, so bountifully. So be it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's pretty. Actually, a friend of mine, he told me that he was here in Switzerland, actually, on a organic and biodynamic vineyard, and he said in wine, what is needed that the wine as an organic, or the grape as an organic grape survives, is that the skin becomes thicker.
Oh yes,
the skin of the grape is a little bit thicker. And then actually this transforms the taste that they're a little bit more, not astringent, but they're a little bit less fruity and sweet. That's what he said, that they're normally, with the climate which we have here, which could be quite similar to the one in and around New York, is that you really have grapes in general, that the wines, they're a little bit more fresher, they're not that sweet, and maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit more dry in terms of taste, just slightly, but there is a taste difference, he said.
That would have to do with when you harvest it. If you harvest it a little bit later, it'll be sweeter. Mm-hmm. But when the skins get thicker, I mean, people understand that when you have a red grape, it's the pigment of color in the skins that gets into the wine that gives it its color. The truth is that it's not only color. The skin has many other pigments that have everything to do with the way the wine tastes and the way, whether it aged well or not, that too. Mm-hmm. When there are white grapes with white skins, then you can, a lot of times white wine, they'll forget the skins, they'll press the juice right out. But they have what in English we call orange wine. It's not orange like, a magic marker orange, but it's just a little bit more pigment inside the skin, and you leave the skins on, even though it's a white grape, and obviously no color gets into the wine very much, but such a radically different experience of compounds and all of that. They do some of that here in New York, so it's kind of interesting to see how it turns out on this side of the island.
Yeah, okay. Nice. Good. So then, let us have a taste of the tea. So I also brought the sample with me. So
Okumidori Sencha.
Exactly, yeah. So I just did a tasting yesterday of this one. So I'm curious if I taste the same tea than yesterday, because often you have your palate changing a little bit from day to day. Mm-hmm. What you will notice is this is a shaded tea. So it always has a little bit. So with green tea in general, you have kind of this little bit more green and grassy note. This is always the case. But what is nice when you smell the leaves, you always have a slight tone, a light sweet undertone, which you get from the shading. And yesterday I was smelling a little bit more of a honey melon. Do you get anything from the leaves itself?
I do.
Do you get a little bit this light sweetness which tea leaves carry?
I don't get sweetness, but I do get a lot of fruitiness. To me, it is a little bit, in other words, it's not very sugary, but I can tell right away. I get papaya. I get stone, which is to say peach, nectarine, that nature, for sure. You know, I get something telling me that there's citrus in here, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Yeah, quince perhaps, but I might just be making that up.
Yeah, that's it's actually funny. Yes, when I thought you get it a little bit more in the taste. Yeah, but I'm a little bit more on the honey melon side than on the papaya side, but I think this is quite close to each other.
Yes.
Okay, so this tea is actually harvested for, or is shaded actually for 1 week. So when you're also tasting teas which are shaded, you always get a little bit this kind of more fruity or sweeter undertones. This is typical, and when you look at the leaves, they're a little bit darker also, and this is also a sign that tea is shaded. This one, for example, is shaded for 7 days. What's important also in terms of production, so I think this is something very unique also to the Japanese tea production, because Japan was until now the only country where I heard that they do it. So normally you have a light steam bath or a longer steam bath. So when they harvest the tea, to keep it green, they have to kill the enzymes which are turning the tea actually into black tea. If they just laid out over time, it would become, or dried, it would become black tea. And they have to let it go through to a steam bath. Either you kind of pan fry them. This is what China often does. In Japan, there's a special kind of tea which is called kamairicha, where they still do that, but normally they really put it through a steam bath. And this one here is now a deep steamed, so a longer steamed tea, meaning that they're, instead of 20 to 30 seconds, they put it through a steam bath which is going 1 minute to 1 minute and even 1 minute 20 seconds. It's not so much longer. What happens is that this breaks the cell membranes a little bit stronger down. That's why the tea leaves are also finer. They're also a little bit more brittle. This you can see in the aspect of the tea leaves. And what happens at the same time, it renders the tea a little bit sweeter. So the origin of this was that in Shizuoka, which is more in the north, and the north you go, you have a little bit more, a little bit of harsh taste tone in the tea leaves, or can be a little bit harsher, and you're able to sweeten the tea taste thanks to this longer steaming. And here, as we're in the south, and we have an Okumidori, which is by nature already a little bit sweet, this then renders the tea even sweeter. So we actually have here a very sweet and round tea, which shows a lot of fruit notes. And this is actually, personally, it's my favorite cultivar, so varietal, the Okumidori one, which is a crossbreed of Yabukita and Asatsuyu, if I remember it right. These are just where they crossbreed. It's 2 of them, and then the Okumidori. It was around the 70s they developed this cultivar, and the first time I tasted it, I really liked it, because it's on the one hand like full-bodied, so you have really a slight density also more in the water, and it's very sweet and even fruity when you drink it.
Great. Well, let's do that.
So then let's go into it. Then I have preheated the water for 65 degrees Celsius, which is around 165 Fahrenheit.
Me too. I might be a little bit warmer than that, but I think I'll...
Perfect. And then we can just pour like 5, 6.
You tell me when.
And
also,
then,
I'm very proud, I want to say, the QSU I'm using, I love it very much. I just got it in the last couple of months. It was a gift from my parents, and I'm very grateful for it.
Oh, nice. Looks great. Wow. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. And even a red clay. So what What do you have a little bit with the red clay cue, so the one you're using? Because I have a glazed one. You see how shiny it is, so it's quite neutral. But when you have like yours, a red clay, which is non-glazed, you can have that, especially with the red clay, that the red clay pushes a little bit more the umami flavor, so a little bit the sweet savory flavor. This is what I realized. So now we're gonna have a little bit of different experience, you and me, but I think we will be still quite close. So fukamushi or deep steam tea, very short steeping. I take it out normally after 45 seconds, so we can already slowly go there and pour the tea. Good. Try to get out all the drops. These are the best ones, the last drops.
Immediately on the nose, umami.
Yeah.
It sets the tone, you know, I enjoy that.
So you see also a little bit on the leaf side. So you see they opened up a little bit now, but they are still not fully rolled out. This is always in the first brewing, you should have them like semi-rolled out. And this is now a sign that you can use them now, but you definitely can go for several more brewings, and you will see over each steeping that they open up a little bit more. But here, smaller leaves, as I said, so they will not open up in a very, very big way, or which is quite different to a Chinese tea. What's nice also color-wise, it's already in the very nice green, kind of quite a strong green color. This is also typical for the deep steam tea, that it gives or releases more of the green color to the water, which is then this more intense. Especially with the second brewing, we will see that it will get even greener. Good, then let's have a sip. What are the notes you're getting?
Well, at least on this first steep, what I get immediately is just an inrush, a wave of umami in a very good way. You know, it has a sweetness to it, as much as you were saying. I'm not getting the fruity notes right away. I think those are going to develop. But immediately I get the sweetness behind the umami. And to me, in tea, you know, I told you I drink all kinds of different things, but I find that in tea, especially Japanese tea, Japanese green tea, when you have leafiness, remember, I drink a lot of coffee, that's a seed. I drink a lot of wine, that's a fruit. Tea is a leaf, and it's important to understand the different parts of the plants, and it's very important in the experience. And in the leaf, the idea of sweetness is a bit rare. Japanese tea is where it's found, and I think it's a very rewarding experience. You know, I get plenty of sweetness in the dessert wine, or, you know, if I make a cocktail with spirits or whatnot. But to get it naturally from the leaf is a magical thing. And that's what I'm getting right away from the get-go.
And it's especially when you were drinking, this is what I realized as well, when you're looking for a more sweetness also in the tea, actually the first brewing of a deep steam tea is very, very sweet. And you have other notes in the side. You will see in the second brewing, it will change, the taste will change a little bit. I think always you get a little bit more of in the second brewing, you get a little bit more of the greenness also of the tea, a little bit the green taste of flavor profiles. Here you have a lot of sweetness, but it's very focused on the sweet and the umami. So I get a little bit of sweet corn as well. Like I always get with the umami, I always get a kind of sweet corn, which is always there present, but it's very, very sweet. And that's what's nice about the fukamushi. If you're really going, or the deep steam, if you're going for, or if you're looking for a sweet taste, this is definitely, especially when the tea has a higher quality and it's even longer steam, then you can really go with quite big certainty that the tea has a very nice sweet note to it, especially the first brew. Then, shall we go to the second one?
Yes, please.
So here, this will be very short. 20 seconds is enough, because now we open up the leaves. And then we can more or less pour it directly into the glass or the cup. So now let's go to the second one, I would say.
Yes.
So what you can see already now that the tea, or at least I'm not sure if you see it on your side, but here clearly I have a stronger green color, more intensity in the green.
You can't see because I have a white one. But
Yeah. And then let's have a sip. You get much more, now it shifts much more into the stone fruits. Like I get now a lot of, I get peach papaya mix. Now you put papaya in my mind. Now I get it. It's good.
I agree. I get a lot of peach nectarine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the second brewing, I think for me, it's always the second brewing. It's more interesting. The other day I had an interview with Chad, and he is super fond of the first brewing. He loves the sweetness, and I'm always more about the second with this kind of tea, because it kind of shows more complexity to it. You have more different taste profiles. It goes a little bit deeper and broader, the tea taste, in my opinion. That's why I'm more fond of the second steeping with the Fukamushi. How about you?
I don't play favorites. I know that's a bit of a cop-out of an answer, but it's true. I couldn't enjoy one as much without the other, because when you compare them, whatever, I mean, in a given instance, I might prefer one over the other, and then the next time vice versa. But at no point could I know what it is I like so much about it without comparison to another.
Yeah.
This time, I think the first one I enjoyed, but because I think it had not to do so much with the tea. I was just approaching it and learning and exploring, and then in the second one, you know, it's a little different. You had it, and you're seeing something new about it. Are you there?
Mm-hmm, I am. We cut off a little bit, but I got more or less the sentence, the essence of what you say. So more the first one in this time?
Yes.
For you? Okay. And also the smell. So the smell is now very different. So when you smell the leaves, they're much greener also. Get much more the spinachy tones. Get always a little bit of artichoke when I smell the leaves when they brewed. And then we can go for the third one. Also 20 seconds.
Why are the second and third so much shorter?
Because the leaves, they're already open. So actually you don't need to brew it that long, because what happens is that like you have the rolling, or kind of the tea leaves start to roll out, and then they just need a little bit more time in the first brewing. But as soon as they're open, you can really go for the direct, more or less directly for the brewing. That's the nice, or the pouring, that's the nice thing. As soon as the leaves are open, you don't need to brew them for a long time. Good. Now, when you look at the leaves, they're clearly more open. They're bigger.
Yes.
What are you getting from this brew here?
Well, maybe it's just me, but I'm getting a lot of umami, much like the first time.
I'm getting a little bit more sugary notes again. It's like it's drifting away a little bit from the stone fruits, a little bit more sugary. Umami as well, but I get also quite some green notes. Edamame, a little bit of slight fresh spinachy notes.
Okay.
But you're right, the umami note is quite present, yeah, still.
The edamame, now that you mentioned that, I taste that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can even go to 4th or 5th brewing with this one, but I feel that the tea already gets a little bit lighter, so I'm expecting it in the next brewings that it will go down in terms of taste. So often it's around 3 to maybe 4 brewings you can do. I think this one here now will go down over time with the taste. So I often do it 3 times when I just do my kind of normal ceremony, let's say like this, with this tea. So that's more or less what I do with this one here. But I'm sure you can also go a little bit more, a little bit for further steepings. Good. I try 4th one now. Is it the first tea you drink today, or did you already have one?
Earlier today, I had one completely different. I had a Yunnan black tea.
Okay. Do you often switch between countries, or is it more switching between tea types?
Both, whatever I feel. What I drank today was at work. And when I'm in the office, it's a little bit less about exploring and a little bit more about just enjoying it to sort of complement my day. The way some people do music.
Is it in the morning you go more for a stronger tea? Or is it
in the morning I have coffee.
For coffee?
Coffee, and lots of it too.
Yeah.
Tea is in the afternoon.
Okay. Yeah. I know a lot of people, they like the very first drink to kind of kickstart the day is coffee often. And then they over time at 10 o'clock or as you said in the afternoon will switch more into the tea world.
Yes.
It's still quite flavorful. It's getting lighter. Yeah, the connection got a little bit bad. Got a little bit worse over time. I don't know. Maybe it's the weather. Sometimes living here in the city center and somehow the houses are big. So sometimes the connection is not so good.
Okay.
Might be on my side. So all in all, what's your judgment of the tea?
Oh, I love it very much. I would say I didn't have any expectations going in. I do that on purpose. I try to say, I might learn about the tea, or the same with wine, coffee, etc. I might learn about it, but I won't try to say this is what I'm going to taste, because if it's a surprise, it's almost always a happy one. But also, why do that? Let the tea speak for itself. And I think that in this case, what it told me is it told me terroir. It told me craftsmanship, and it definitely told me just fun, pleasant, sit, share, enjoy. Very much what I love about Japanese food.
Yeah, and it's actually the first time I directly share the same tea and we discover it together. So that was a first timer for me too, and it's nice. Never did a tea sharing of the same tea over Zoom. Sharing tea over Zoom I already did, but not tea sharing of the same tea. So it was a new experience for me too. It was great. Can you still see me? Just your picture froze on my side, but
well, I can see you.
I hear you well.
Okay.
Good. So, and when do you get up normally in the morning? You're an early riser, or?
No, I should be. If I were responsible, I would be, but I'm not good at that. I get up the average time, let's say. In the United States, we work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, and that's the kind of job I have.
That's also your time frame. Actually, are quite similar, but now I got up very early to do this Zoom call with you, and I always love it when I'm so early in the day because you have so much time ahead of you still. That's what I like about the early times, but it's hard to go to bed in the evening, for me at least.
I agree. I tend to be a bit of a night owl.
Yeah.
But so
quietness of the night. But I will not hold you much longer. So hey, it was great meeting you. Thanks a lot.
You
for
too.
taking the time, and it was a pleasure to share with you this tea. And yeah, maybe we can do it another time. And it was super interesting about the wine and the experiences you had with wine. So definitely open up my eyes more, as I'm super curious also in the wine there. So we still have a lot to explore. It's a never-ending exploration, but that's, I think, what's the great thing is about both of the drinks.
Very much so. And thank you very much for having me. I want to say that you did not ask me to say this. It's my own volition. I really enjoyed everything that sample pack. The Suda Yuan was really great. The teas are really high quality, and it gave me a chance to explore, which, as you can tell, is very much a part of what I like about this. And I just want to say keep up the great work, please.
Thanks a lot. We will try our best. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, and thanks for the compliments. And I guess I wish you a great night. Have a good night to sleep, and then, well, we keep in touch.
Yes, thank you again.
Okay, thanks a lot, Daniel.